Hello and welcome to today's Office Hours presentation. This is your host, Paul Hoyt. Our Office Hours presentation is a relaxed, informal mentoring program that we do every Monday at noon Pacific time. All the recording slides and exercises are archived in the members area of our website. And for right now, the recordings are available on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/Paul Hoyt. The reasons we do these Office Hours presentations is that we know that being a successful small business owner can be a great experience, but we also know that it's tough. You need support in order to be successful, and we want you to get to know us because when you do, you'll know that first and most importantly, we really do care about you. We want you to be successful in every area of your life, whatever that means to you. We want you to find the greatness, the happiness, the divinity within yourselves, and then remember it, embrace it, and live it every single day. Our passion is to help entrepreneurs and business owners get clear, stay focused, so they can grow faster in their business. And the way we do that is talking to them about the different competency areas of business, what I call key performance areas. These are the 7 key performance areas that I defined in my book in 2004, The Foundation Factor. And of course, the gist of that book was that most people are really, really good at 1 or 2 of these areas, but you at least have to be competent in all of those areas in order to have a sustainable, thriving business. Today, our conversation is going to be primarily around the key performance area of leadership. In the Awakened CEO system, we defined the different levels of performance in terms of mindset, methods, and momentum, and the different areas of growth in terms of business growth, professional growth, and personal growth. And again, it's our emphasis on being competent in all 9 of these areas, that it's just not good enough to be good at business growth. You also need to focus on professional growth and personal growth, because it is those blocks and obstacles that come up from our subconscious mind that oftentimes get in our way of learning what we need to learn and doing what it is that we need to do. And today's conversation is really focused on mindset. How do you have a great mindset towards mistakes and challenges that happen in your business, in your area of professional growth, and in your personal growth too. And we're also going to talk about some methods, some tactics that you can use to deal with mistakes and challenges as they come up in your business. Today's agenda is really pretty simple. We're going to talk a little bit about being both cheerful and imperfect. We're going to have a lot of conversations about the nature of mistakes and how we deal with those mistakes, and then jump right into open Q&A and coaching. We do have some special offers that we'll give you at the end of the program as well, so stick around. Last week we talked about being a great leader, actually a couple of weeks ago, and we said that a great leader is one who paints the vision for their company, who creates a profitable, sustainable, and probably scalable business model. We said that they created and executed great plans. They put systems in place at their company to help things go with higher quality and more efficiency. They built and managed a great team, and they were really good at communications and really good at relationships. So when it comes to team, and when it comes to systems, and when it comes to relationship, we quickly find out that nothing's perfect, that mistakes are being made. Mistakes are being made by ourselves, and mistakes are being made by our staff members, by our partners, by our colleagues, by our suppliers. I mean, there's very little in this world that is perfect from the physical perspective. And yes, I know that I've got a lot of metaphysical and very spiritual people who listen to what we have to say here. And from the spiritual perspective, it's okay to say that, everything's perfect. I accept things the way that it is. It's all part of God's divine plan, etc. But from the physical perspective, we do make mistakes, and things are not perfect, and we can improve upon them. And that's the perspective from which we are speaking today. So first of all, get used to mistakes. You're going to make the mistakes. Your staff is going to make those mistakes. Some of those mistakes are going to be small, and some of those mistakes, unfortunately, are going to be really big. The big issue, and what we're going to talk about today, is how do you deal with them? In my research and preparing this little presentation to kind of guide and focus our group coaching, I came across this really nice diagram from an organization called Mind/Shift. I went on to Google Images, which is one of my favorite places to go, and I just typed in, dealing with mistakes, and came up with all kinds of things. And I want to talk about this a little bit because it's going to foster some conversation, hopefully later on in our presentation today. So in this 4-quadrant system of dealing with mistakes, the Mindshift folks said that along one of the axes are intentionality, whether it was low intentionality or high intentionality, and along the other axis we talked about the learning opportunity, whether there's a high learning opportunity or an even higher learning opportunity. So we all see sloppy mistakes being made. Sometimes when people just did not stay focused, when the quality wasn't being checked the way that it needed to be made, or people who normally do things very well, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, they just lose focus and they have a sloppy mistake. So those things happen in business, and we'll talk a little bit about what you can do to avoid those sloppy mistakes or correct behavior whenever you see one of those sloppy mistakes. In the upper left-hand corner comes kind of an aha moment of when the learning opportunity is even higher when you make, when there was low intentionality with regards to that. You really weren't trying something that was new, and you certainly didn't intend to make any mistakes. You didn't expect any mistakes. But man, when one happens, you've really got the opportunity to learn and grow a lot. Likewise, we have the stretch mistakes. When we know we're intentionally getting out of our comfort zone and we see that there is a tremendous amount of learning opportunity, we're willing to take the risk and we give it a shot to do something perhaps that we've never done before, or something that we have done but that has been very difficult when we did it in the past. The high stakes mistakes are in the lower right-hand corner, when you have a big learning opportunity and high intentionality, but maybe you really didn't even know that you were taking a risk. Maybe you thought that it was a stretch, that it was well within your capability of doing something accurately and correctly, but it turned out that you were really walking a tightrope instead. And by the way, that's exactly what I see with so many business owners out there. They thought that going into business was a little bit of a stretch for them, but when they got into business for themselves, they found out that it was more like walking on a tightrope than it was walking across a suspension bridge or somewhere where they could actually hang on and have some security about it. And they find themselves making a lot of mistakes. They find themselves being weak in one or more of the key performance areas, and it's holding them back. The weakness is usually, by the way, in the areas of marketing and sales. Most of the time when people go out and start a business for themselves, they're really good at delivering the work. They're a great painter, a great accountant, a great consultant, a great computer programmer, a great engineer, but they lack skill and competence and maybe even education and training, in the other areas of business. So think about this when it comes to the mistakes that you have made in the past, the mistakes that you see being made around you. Are they a really great, honest mistake of somebody that's stretching and just get out of their comfort zone a little bit? Is it a mistake of somebody who thought that they were stretching, but it really turned out that it was way beyond their current capability? Or was it just a sloppy mistake? Or was it a mistake that just leads to an aha and hopefully, wasn't a very big mistake in the first place? So we all make these mistakes. We all make them in all of these different types of categories from time to time. As we talked about earlier, the question is really, how do we deal with the mistakes? Well, there are some negative responses we can have. We can go into denial and say, that really wasn't a mistake. Or we can blame and shame other people. We can say, well, that was out of my control. I had nothing to do with it. I did everything right. John made that mistake. Peter made that mistake. Susie made that mistake. The supplier made that mistake. The government made that mistake. It's somebody else's fault. I'm taking no responsibility for this whatsoever. We can go into a state of anger and just be really pissed off at them and or at ourselves. We can go into a state of depression and say, oh man, I just can't do anything right. This is just really sucks. I think I'm just going to give up and crawl back into bed. And or we can have, some regrets about that. We can say, darn it, I guess this really didn't, I really screwed up. Woe is me, pity is me. I deserve to be punished in some way. But I'm encouraging you not to have any of these negative responses to the mistakes that come up in your life. Instead, I encourage you to have a positive response. Positive response is like acceptance. Yep, I did that. That happened. Gratitude. I'm grateful that things didn't go worse. I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to learn from this, so I'm not going to do that again. I see the opportunity for learning and growth. I see the opportunity for forgiveness. I see the opportunity to forgive myself and to forgive other people. And I oftentimes say that having a regret is when you fail to forgive yourself, and when you have resentment, that's when you fail to forgive other people. But getting back to a sense of gratitude and getting back to a sense of forgiveness, seeing the learning and growth opportunities that are presented to you whenever a mistake happens, is really a great way to get back into cheerfulness. And yeah, you really can get back into cheerfulness. But what stands in our way? Why do we have negative responses to things when we make mistakes? Well, I think it all stems back to being punished by making mistakes as a child. Modern psychology says you never tell a child that they are a bad child. You say that they made a mistake. Oops, you made a poor choice on that, or that was a bad thing to do. But you don't tell them that they're a bad child, because that really detracts from their self-esteem. If you can point out and said, that was a bad decision, or oops, you messed up there, let's get it right, and help them cultivate a growth mindset to where they really don't have a real sense of poor self-image or self-esteem whenever a mistake is made, it really helps. But for many people, they weren't raised in a positive, encouraging environment. They were raised in an environment that was a little bit punishing, and yes, even a little bit abusive when they came to making mistakes. And when they make mistakes as an adult, it really, really bugs them and upsets them, and they have a shadow response to that. They have a negative response to that. Because the bottom line is, the lizard part of our brain, that aspect of our subconscious mind that responds to fear, is really in charge of responding to mistakes that happen around us. If that mistake causes us to be fearful at all, it's not necessarily our conscious mind that's responding. It is this lizard brain within each one of us that is responding. So having a fearful response, or having a negative response to a fearful situation, is a pretty natural thing. I've seen I've seen a lot of people put too much pressure on their kids to perform. You have to be the captain of the team. You have to play a musical instrument. You have to get straight A's. You have to not have any friends. When you come home from school, we're working on our homework until 9 or 10 o'clock. And if you get all your homework done, then and only then can you have a few minutes of downtime. There are a lot of people raised in oppressive environments like that cause them to have a negative response to any mistakes that come up in their life. So here are some tactics that I'm going to recommend that you focus on when it comes to dealing with the mistakes that happen in your life. First of all, accept responsibility. Secondly, believe in yourself. Believe that in spite of this mistake, I'm still willing to believe that I'm going to be successful. That, by the way, is one of my favorite mantras that came out of a little bit of research on emotional freedom technique. One of their favorite mantras is that even though this thing is true, even though this thing happened, I am still willing to believe that I am a good person, that I am a strong and capable person, that things will turn out to be all right. So believe in yourself and find a mantra, find a way of affirming your hope, your belief, your faith, your conviction that things will turn out all right. And when you improve with a warrior's attitude. Many of you know that I'm a member of a men's group for the Mankind Project and have been for a long time. One of the key things that we focus on in this men's group is whatever decision you make it as a warrior. Make it from a position of strength, that I am choosing to respond in this way, and I am choosing to respond as a warrior would respond, as a strong person would respond. and stepping back into my power and stepping back into my confidence whenever I do the thing that I've chosen to do. Be passionate about being the best person that you can be, which means being passionate about seeing the opportunity for growth in everything that you do, and learn the lessons that the challenges are trying to teach you. Whenever I coach my clients, that's always one of the questions I ask them is, if the universe were trying to teach you a lesson from this mistake that was made, what lesson would it be that they were trying to teach you? And the way that they answer that is really a very cool discussion that follows. Again, with the tactics, update your systems whenever a sloppy mistake is made, or I would say whenever any mistake is made, but especially whenever a sloppy mistake is made. We talked about how in this office hours presentation we were going to talk about mindset, mostly mindset of personal growth, professional growth, and business growth, but we were all going to talk about methods when it came to business growth. And this is the point that we want to talk about, those methods. Whenever you see a sloppy mistake being made in your business by yourself or by somebody else, it's an opportunity for you to update your systems. You can update a checklist. I'm a big fan of operational checklists. I have dozens of checklists. I have 3 or 4 checklists that I use every single morning in my business, and other checklists that I use periodically. For example, in preparing for an office hours presentation or posting the recording to an office hours presentation. I have checklists for each one of those. I have checklists for end-of-month accounting. I have checklists for end-of-quarter and end-of-year accounting that I'm going to be using. Those checklists are what prevent us, or what prevent me primarily from making sloppy mistakes. It also means that I don't have to memorize, the 1,000 things that I need to do, just at the right time and in the right sequence for my business. So whenever you find yourself in business making a mistake of some kind, update a checklist of some kind, in your head mentally or on paper and shared with other people, ideally. I'm also going to encourage you to get a coach. I have, at least 2 or 3 coaches at any one time. And the reason why it's really important for you to have a coach is because coaches, really good coaches, make it easier for you to talk about and share the mistakes that you personally have made. Where in your business, you may not want to share with your other staff members so much, especially if you got devastated by a mistake that you made. You certainly want to appear vulnerable, and you certainly want to give them permission to make mistakes and to share the mistakes they have made with you by being a person that shares the mistakes that you have made and demonstrating personal responsibility for that. But you can take it a little bit deeper with a coach. You can tell a coach, you can tell a counselor things that may or may not just be appropriate to say in a work environment. It's really important for you to have that intimate, close relationship with somebody that you can talk to about your fears and about your regrets and about the times that you failed to forgive yourself, etc. So I'm a big fan of getting a coach or getting a counselor. For some of you lucky people out there, that might be your spouse or your business partner. It might be, oftentimes it needs to be a third party. And I really encourage you to surround yourself with inspiration. As it turns out, there are a lot of people out there who are willing to give us a tremendous amount of inspiration. I'm going to share a little bit of that here in just a second with you. But first of all, the last tactic I'm going to suggest is to practice. We practice updating our systems. We practice shifting our energy from a state of depression and darkness and shadow energy back into cheerfulness and back into light. We practice being that cheerfully imperfect leader and rebounding as quickly as we possibly can from the mistakes and from the fear and from the dark and shadow energy that came about as a result of that fear. And fortunately, there are a lot of people, as I said, ready to help us with that. There are a lot of great inspirational messages out there. And I went out looking for a couple of them, and I found a bunch. And I'm going to share them with you right now. Here's the first one. Failure is not failure if you learn from it. How true. Tomorrow hopes that we have learned something from yesterday, which means that to have a better tomorrow, focus on learning something from the mistakes of today, and if appropriate, updating your internal checks and balances and quality control practices and your internal systems, to prevent that mistake from happening again tomorrow. And here's one from Ken Robinson: if you're not prepared to be wrong, you'll never come up with anything original. If you're not prepared to stretch and prepared to accept the possibility of making a mistake and not making it, you're never going to be as strong as you would be otherwise. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts, from our friend Winston Churchill, who of course is also famous about saying the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage that continues to count. And I would say the ability that you have to be resourceful, to pick yourself back up, to get back on your horse and ride again, that really, really is important. Here's another. If you keep blaming something or someone else for your problems, you will never learn why problems come your way. If you accept responsibility and say, what am I doing? What did I do to attract this into my life? What am I doing to continue to make this mistake, and how do I change personally? How do I change my attitude? How do I change my mindset and my methods in order to prevent this mistake from happening again? You're going to keep making the same mistake over and over again. Here's another one. Success is not built on success. It's built on failure. It's built on frustration. And sometimes, unfortunately, it's built on catastrophe. How true that so many great people, were successful in business on their third or fourth try, and they went bankrupt the first couple of times. I just listened to a nice hour-long lecture over the weekend from somebody that was successful in their first business and successful in their second business, and then they blew the whole thing thinking that their success was predetermined, that they were an absolute genius, and not recognizing that maybe they got a little bit lucky the first time, and maybe they got a little bit lucky the second time. They felt tremendously overconfident, even arrogant about their ability to start and grow businesses, and lost it all, but then came back again, with fifth business, and were successful again. But oftentimes our greatest learning opportunities come whenever we make really big mistakes. And when we make that mistake, never let the success get to your head, and never let failure get to your heart. Don't lose hope. Believe in yourself. Have faith in the universe. Know that which helped you be successful in earlier days is going to help you be successful again. And if you just keep after it, you will have the opportunity to rebound from the mistakes that you just made. Henry Ford said, failure is the opportunity to begin again more intelligently. I really like that. And here's one of my new favorite words, flossom. Flossom is an individual who embraces their flaws and knows they're awesome regardless. So my encouragement to you is to be awesome all the time, and if you make a mistake, then be flossom about that mistake. And finally, I want to share my very favorite quote of coming up with regards to this subject, and that is, you are allowed to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress simultaneously, from Sophia Bush. I sometimes paraphrase that a little bit and say you're allowed to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress, at the same time, or you have permission to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress at the same time. It's one of my favorite paraphrases of that. But it really is a great attitude. It's really great to have a mindset that says, I know that as I stretch in my business, or even as I walk this tightrope of my business, that I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm going to choose not to have any regrets or resentments. I'm going to forgive other people. I'm going to forgive myself. I'm going to learn from this mistake, I'm going to update my systems whenever I need to update my systems, and I'm going to boldly march forward as a cheerful warrior marches forward, knowing that I am an imperfect leader, but I am extremely capable of doing magnificent things. There are related office hours that we've talked about in the past that you may find of interest to this particular message. 53 was on claiming your own truth, 111 was on change or die, and 133 was on your growth mindset. And we have 10 other office hour presentations in our personal development collection that you may also want to avail yourself of. And with that, I want to go into open Q&A and coaching for those folks who are on the call and for those who have sent in some questions ahead of time and a few other things that I've listed down that I just really want to talk about. So for those of you who are on the call, if you've got something that you want to talk about, go ahead and talk about it. I'm going to open up the conversation here, frankly, with talking about what have been some of my biggest mistakes in business. What are the ones that I have gotten over in business, and how did I make them, and how did I come to make them, and how did I get over them? The most expensive mistake that I ever made in business was hoping that other people would pay me. Because oftentimes in dealing with the marketplace that I deal with, people who are raising capital, people who are just getting started in growing their business, oftentimes, they don't have very much money, and sometimes they run out of money, and despite their best intentions to pay, they don't have the ability to pay. I've seen a lot of people make decisions to keep their doors open in their business instead of paying me. So, how do I get over that? How do I adjust that? Well, the way that I adjusted it was by adjusting some of my internal policies and practices, and that is I never put myself at risk more than something that I can afford. I only deal with, I always asked for some upfront money, some down payment, at least on larger projects, and things that are, typically less than $1,500 or $2,000, I ask for entire payment up front. And that's the way I've dealt with that mistake. I learned the hard way that dealing with a marketplace that doesn't have much money, or tomorrow is at risk of having far less money than they have today, that the way that you keep your business solvent is by asking for and demanding payment up front, or at least a significant down payment when it comes to any package that you might provide to people, so that you're never at risk anything more than you can afford. So I'll just open up the conversation and tell you that that's probably been my biggest mistake of dealing with a marketplace that I didn't really understand the dynamics. See, when I was growing up back in Kansas, there are some fine folks on the call today from Kansas, we always paid our bills. You always paid your bill. You paid the water bill, you paid the grocery bill, you always paid your bills because, that's the way that you did business. Your word was your honor. When I was growing up, you rolled down your car and you left the keys in the car. And even cars in those days didn't even require keys in order to start the car. It was just a very honest place. Nobody would even think about, stealing or being dishonest in any way. So it really was quite an education for me to start to deal with people who were not able to pay their bills, or in some cases dealing with people who had no intention of paying their bills. And that was probably the biggest mistake and the biggest eye-opening opportunity that I had for myself. And with that, I'm going to open it up to other questions and comments and confessions about mistakes that we have made in our business. And joining me again today is the lovely and awesome Stephanie May, who may have some more questions for us. Stephanie, any questions or discussion topics?
Yeah. I'll confess what my business mistake was.
What's that?
When I was building my franchise, well, there were two major mistakes I made in that one. Number one, I failed to listen to the people on my team who were telling me that smartphones at the time were changing our target market dramatically, and I failed to pay attention to what they were saying.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second fatal flaw, same project, the franchise, it was actually you who kept showing me the numbers and how the numbers just didn't make sense for for ROI for investors and for the franchisee, and I failed to listen to you. It took me 3 years before I finally paid attention. Yeah, 2 big mistakes.
Well,
Costly, very fatal mistakes.
thank you. And what did you learn from those mistakes?
There are so many lessons I just can't, I can't even think. The 2 biggest ones I would say, pay attention to your team. You know, if you invite people on your team and in your company to participate, then when you ask them questions, then pay attention to their feedback. I learned that my way is not the only way, and that many times as CEOs, for me, I guess, as a CEO, I just got too caught up in the busy work and I wasn't listening. I wasn't paying attention to the market or to my team. And the second thing was to pay attention to the numbers, how important numbers are. Numbers are my friend. Numbers are my friend.
Oh, well, being an accountant kind of guy who loves the numbers, I love to hear that. Well, congratulations on learning the lessons from that. I have this belief, that's bordering on a conviction, that the universe conspires to teach us humility. That one of the most difficult lessons is to be both a humble person and a confident person, to understand that I'm going to make mistakes, but boy, am I ever capable of greatness. And to believe in our own greatness and our own capability, even though we are making mistakes, to see ourselves as a masterpiece and a work in process at the same time. I remember vividly the moment in time where I decided that where I learned the lesson of humility. It's a tough lesson for many, many people to learn. I would suggest that, some of our greatest leaders have certainly not learned the lesson of humility yet, and it comes back to bite you after a while, that's for sure. So next question, next comment on the subject of being a cheerfully imperfect leader, and dealing with mistakes that we make and our staff makes too. What do you got, Stephanie?
Here's from, this is from Clarissa in Texas. I have a staff member who's just sloppy in his work. How can I get him to pay more attention more closely?
Well, I would say a couple of things. Number one is it may be systemic, which means that you may have a system that invites or allows sloppiness in some way. So I would look at that first, before you start paying attention to the person and saying, really focusing on the person and the individual, look at the system. Because you as a leader and as a manager have a responsibility to implement systems in your company that allow your people to be successful, right? You want everybody on your team to be successful in what they do. And sometimes those sloppy mistakes, are not so much their fault as it is the fact that they're dealing with a system that invites or encourages or unnecessarily allows those sloppy mistakes to happen. I'm of course a part-time CFO for several companies. I'm a big fan on the controller function and implementing checks and balances. Have one person, for example, fill out the deposit slip and another person actually take the deposits to the bank. One person comes up with the list of checks to be paid, but another person approves them, and maybe even a third person actually makes the payment. We put checks and balances in place for 2 reasons. One is to prevent mistakes, sloppy mistakes, and the other one is to discourage embezzlement and fraud. That's the kind of mistake, intentional mistake that you really want to avoid in an accounting situation. So kind of a follow-on question to there, and I don't think she's on the call right now to respond to this, but it could be that you have other members of your staff who are not making those sloppy mistakes, and you just have one person who is making sloppy mistakes, and the performance is just not up to the standards that were set by the other people. And if that's the case, then you may have to take some sort of corrective action. And corrective action, starts with a conversation that says, John, I'm really uncomfortable with the number of mistakes that I'm seeing you make relative to the other folks here. So you really need to focus a lot more on the details, because if you continue to make these kinds of mistakes, we're going to have to make a change of some kind. Yeah, that is kind of a threat. Yeah, that is kind of an ultimatum. But at some point in time, you absolutely have to do that. Especially, by the way, if it's a critical system. If somebody's dealing with, for example, medication in a pharmacy, you can't allow any mistakes whatsoever. I mean, that your pharmacy assistant, the person who gets the prescriptions and gives them out to people and is double checking your work as the pharmacist, you can't allow those mistakes. You can't allow mistakes when it comes to dispersing medications in a hospital. You have to have systems in place that really, really reduce the probability of mistakes and prevent them as much as possible from happening. So we look at the mistake and the system, but we also look at the person. And if it is the person, if other people are able to perform adequately with the systems that you have in place, it may be, first of all, certainly a chance to bring it to their attention that, I'm uncomfortable because you're making a lot more mistakes than other people are making at our company. And then you may have to take corrective action, which means moving them to a different position that better suits their time and talent and skills, or, allowing them, as I say, giving them the opportunity to be excellent elsewhere. And that's, of course, always tough as a leader, but I can assure you that the longer that you are a leader, that you will, at some point in time in the history of your business, you will need to let people go. Absolutely will absolutely have to make that happen. I hope it doesn't happen too often to you, but circumstances and performance sometimes come together to make that absolutely the right thing to do for your business. Next question or comments?
Okay. Uncomfortable conversation, that might be a good reference to give individuals. Do you know what office hours that is?
I don't. It was one called Structured Conversations. We talked about how to do those structured conversations, and I don't know what the number is off the top of my head, and I can't look it up now with all the stuff that I got going on my screen. But I invite other people to look it up. Look up the office hours on Structured Conversations, because that's a way to have that conversation if you're uncomfortable about that. And Stephanie, I'm going to let us hold for just a second, because we are much through the presentation here. And I want to talk about next week and a couple of things before we go on. Our next office hours is going to be February 6th. That's a week from today. I haven't decided what to do. Probably live group coaching again, focused on one specific topic. I do want to make people aware that we still are offering our gold package at a very special deal. Our gold package is five 90-minute coaching sessions: the Business Clarity Questionnaire, the Phase Growth Strategy, the Business Foundation Profile, the 90-Day Growth Plan, and the First Step Financial Plan for your business. This is absolutely a great way to get unstuck in your business and to move forward in your business. This gold package normally retails for $1,750. We're offering it at $1,497 for those of you on a limited time who may want to sign up for that right away. And it comes with a guarantee. That guarantee is 100% money back guarantee. If you don't want to continue after we get through it the first session, we're going to give you all of your money back. And for a limited time, it comes with a bonus, which is a free coaching session that helps you stay focused after we help you get very clear on what it is that you want to accomplish, why you're going to accomplish it, and how you're going to accomplish it. We want to give you a free bonus coaching session that's valued at $250 to help you stay focused. So that's it. The Get Clear, Stay Focused, Grow Faster system, 5 90-minute planning sessions, one bonus follow-up coaching session, tools that you can use in your business forever, and 100% money-back guarantee, all for the very low price of $1,500. So if you want to take advantage of that, do it now. If you're listening to this recording and it's, several weeks after we made the recording, or even 6 months or a year later, you can be sure that this offer does not exist anymore. But for those of you who are listening to it today or tomorrow or the next day, it's still there. Get up and give me a call, and or set a time to talk at schedulepaul.com. So with that brief commercial interruption, Stephanie, what's next on our list?
Next question.
Yep.
My partner just won't take responsibility for anything. This is from Alex in Pleasanton. My partner just won't take responsibility for anything. What do I do?
Well, you got to have the conversation with them, right? And again, that's, as Stephanie suggested, go back and watch the presentation on structured conversations. And there were several of them in there. There's the couples dialogue, there's the compassionate communications, and there's the UCD system that I came up with. The compassionate communication is also called nonviolent communications by Marshall Rosenberg. So we talk about the facts. Here are my feelings. Here is what I want and what I need, and here's my request from you. You can structure that conversation in that way without them really even knowing that you're doing that. So there's ways to address it, but you got to address the problem if your partner's not taking responsibility for anything. It's a rare situation where you can forgive and overlook somebody who has the emotional intelligent disability of not having good relationship skills. And it really is a disability when you're not able to take personal responsibility. It's either showing a lack of self-awareness and realizing that you had anything to do with it in the first place. It's certainly showing a lack of self-management. It probably is showing a lack of social awareness, and it's certainly showing a lack of relationship management skills whenever you find that, nothing's ever my fault. It's always somebody else's fault. Unfortunately, some people are like that. And I have a sense that maybe they were taught that by their parents in some way. As a parent, we are taught that we never want to tell a child, you make me so unhappy, or you make me so upset, or you're going to make me cry. Because when you do that, you're giving all of that power to somebody else. But what you're actually teaching the child is not that they are powerful and that they are in control. You're teaching them that as adults, they will have no power and they will have no control. You're being a role model for somebody who blames other people and shames other people and takes no personal responsibility. So I have this sense that many people who are unable to take personal responsibility in their own life were around other adults who could not take personal responsibility in their lives. When you find somebody like that, encourage them to take a little responsibility. Are you willing to take responsibility for this one little thing, and honor them whenever they do that, and really encourage them through being a great role model, and through your encouragement for them to take a little bit of a stretch and maybe even a little bit of a risk, stepping out on a limb and saying, yeah, that was my fault, and not badgering them and belittling them for doing them, but rather honoring them for the humility and vulnerability they showed in taking that responsibility. I think that's the right thing to do. But it's a rare partner that you want. I've only seen it happen like once out of a few hundred times, to where the partner that you had in business was such a genius and so good at what they did that you were able to overlook all of their other character flaws. Yep, they're a creep. Yep, I don't like what they're doing. Yep, they cause a whole bunch of problems. But, we're going to put them in a little closet, and we're going to shut the door, and we're going to pipe them air and food and water. But we're not going to, we're trying to limit the damage as much as possible, but we recognize that we can't change them. And we're going to try to, take as much as the good as we can by putting systems in place that limit their ability to cause us damage in the other areas of business. Hopefully that was helpful. Next question or discussion topic. Anything else, Steffi?
Yep, there's a couple more here.
Oh, good.
I think I'm in head. I think I'm in over my head in business. Any advice for me?
Well, yeah, I would say, get a coach, number one, and that happens. We talked about that before. Some people think that they're only stretching a little bit, and it turns out that they're walking a tightrope. They just thought that they were walking up the mountain. They didn't realize that they were going to have to walk a tightrope in between spires in order to actually make the business work. So I talk to a lot of people who are over their head in business, and the reason I'm talking to them is because I think they did the right thing. They reached out for support. They reached out for somebody who could help them do a gap analysis, somebody could help them understand how complex their business was and understand what their capabilities were and their resources were relative to the plan, and the challenges that they had in place. To really understand it and get a great picture on it is a really good first step. Certainly when I had my first business in 1980, 1981, it took me a while to realize that, oh golly, you mean I actually got to know something about sales and marketing in order to be successful in business? I thought that just being a great computer programmer was enough. I thought that if I just hung my shingle out, that people would beat a path to my door because they would realize how brilliant I was just because I'm so good looking. Well, that didn't happen. I learned the hard way and the painful way and the expensive way that it was important to be good in sales and marketing in addition to being good in all of those other areas of business too. So, if you find that you're in over your head, find out how far in over your head you are. Work with somebody who can do a gap analysis. And you may want to reach out and get other people on your team who can compensate for your weaknesses. In an office hours presentation I did on Nail It, Then Scale It, great book that I strongly recommend that everybody get familiar with. The venture capitalist in that book says he's never going to invest in another business unless they have the hacker, the huckster, and the hopeful on the team, the salesman, the engineer, and the visionary. So maybe you're the visionary, maybe you're the engineer, but you need to get a salesperson on your team. Go out, find somebody who'll work with you, who can focus on sales and marketing, to somebody that, and share the revenues with them, share the equity, share the ownership with them. Because if they can supply that critical need for you, then they're the person, they're the component, they're the resource you need in order to help make your business work. So get a coach, figure out how big your gaps are, and then figure out if you can get somebody who can help you plug those gaps and what resources you have available to plug those gaps, and go make it happen. If there's anything I can do to support you, schedule a free meeting. We'll talk to you for a little bit and see if one of our programs are right, and if not, then we'll point you in the direction of people who can offer some free support that we're not in a position to offer today. Next question or comment, Steffi.
Okay. This is a good one. How do I switch to being cheerful? And can you recommend some specific exercises?
Yeah, I do. We talked about the ability to practice, shifting, letting go of your shadow energy and coming back into a state of joyfulness and cheerfulness and lightheartedness, even though there's a bunch of crap going down. There's lots and lots of different ways. One of my core beliefs is that there are 1,000 ways to shift your energy, and I know a few hundred of them. So some of the really great ones are a sense of gratitude. To keep a gratitude journal, and a lot of people recommend that first thing in the morning, the first thing that you do, especially if you have a challenge with gratitude, is to write down 4 or 5 or even 10 things that you're grateful for today. I'm grateful that I'm able to get out of bed. I'm grateful that I'm not ill. I'm grateful for, the friends that I've had in my life. I'm grateful for the ability I have to think straight and to learn and to grow. So keep a gratitude journal, and you keep a blessings journal too. I've been blessed with good health. I've been blessed with a sharp mind. I've been blessed with whatever it is that you've been blessed with, and to keep track of that, because every time that we think about things we are grateful for and the blessings that we have in life, it helps us let go of the things which are causing the shadow energy. Another thing that you can do is to give something away to somebody else. Whenever we give something away, maybe that's just handing $1 to a homeless person. Maybe that's putting an extra $5 in the offering plate at church next Sunday. Whatever that happens to be, putting an extra $1 into the Salvation Army kettle whenever you see one. Giving to other people helps remind us of the abundance that we have in our lives, and helps us experience the flow of that abundance through our lives into us and through us out to other people, which is really, really helpful. Now, I have a lot of other things that I do to shift back into a good mood. You can put on favorite songs. You can put on great music. You can have a playlist of inspirational songs or happy songs that whenever you play these songs, you just can't help but being in a great mood. And maybe you have to do them once or twice, but you can get yourself in a good mood there. You can get something to eat. You can get something to drink. You can have some physical activity. I strongly recommend the physical activity, whether that be as simple as taking a breath or taking a walk, or whether that's getting out the punching bag and whacking away on it for a while, or jumping on the bike and riding, or taking a run, or doing something physical. Drop down, give me 20 push-ups. Whatever it is, doing something physical helps move the energy through you as well. And then listening to music and singing along with the music and dancing a little bit can really help move you into that mood and shift your energy. Come up with that list of 10 things that always, always help you shift your energy and to get back into a cheerful place. And when the shadows start to lift, and when that weight on your shoulders starts to lighten a little bit, then you can take a look at the challenge, and you can deal with that challenge from a place of greater confidence and greater hope and greater vision for the future, and deal with it from that place of cheerfulness. I strongly recommend that you have that list. I've got 100 of them. The one that I came up with over the weekend just was phenomenally wonderful for me, and that is just remembering what it's like to be in this awesome place. Remembering what it's like to be cheerful and joyful. Remembering what it's like to be peaceful and feeling wise and feeling powerful, and to love myself and other people. That is a tremendous, tremendous pathway for me personally to shift my energy back into this awesome place where I just love to live. And my wish for each and every one of you is that you have those tactics that you can always rely upon to shift your energy, to get back to that place of confidence and cheerfulness and lightheartedness and vitality and amazement in your life, like I have developed. That's what the whole message about being an awakened CEO is all about the books that I've read, written on the practice of awakening, are all about, is the ability that we have to shift our consciousness each and every other day. So with that, Stephanie, comments and questions. Is that a good ending point, or do we have some more?
I think that's an awesome ending point.
I will take that. Thank you very much for your encouragement. Thank you for joining me today, Stephanie. Thank you for joining us on this call, everybody who joined us live, and for everybody who's listening to the recording. Here's wishing you to have very few mistakes in your business. And here's wishing that you're able to recover from them very quickly, that you're able to learn the lessons to prevent those mistakes from happening again, that you're able to take responsibility and not blame and shame other people, that you're able to be a great role model for other people in your life, and that you're able to step back into your awesome place and continue to be that awesome person that you are as well. And until we meet again, this is Paul, Hoyt, and Stephanie wishing you a most marvelous and prosperous day. Bye-bye.